This video will be a little different than I normally make, but people that have followed my blog over the last year, they'll realize that I tend to get into philosophical things quite often. So anyway, if this isn't your bag, just bear with me. Um, Objective morality is one of those things that apologists like to use all the time, simply because it's trivial to get people to feel that objective morality exists. Appealing to emotion is quite common with this argument. Now, Epidemic 2020 and Theoretical Bullshit had an exchange a few weeks ago about this, and I think both of them made some pretty strong arguments on both sides, although I'm obviously going to side against Epidemic here. Since I see no reason to believe that objective morality exists, I'm not going to go point by point on his video, since it would be superfluous. Instead, I'm going to point out a couple of inconsistencies he holds with his own mind that need addressing. One thing that Epidemic brought up that has been one of my arguments against a perfect God for years, he attempts to use in support of his argument.
The Christian God is said to be perfect. Perfection entails lacking nothing. From those two we can see that God has no needs to fulfill. Therefore, God creates not to fulfill one of his own needs, but creates for the future benefit of the creatures.
Epidemic points out here correctly that a perfect being is in need of nothing. I agree. But he falsely asserts that this perfect being is doing things not for him, but for us. I must ask why? Why would a perfect being do anything for us? What would his reason be that would not go against his perfection? I'm not bringing this up to sidetrack the morality subject, just to illustrate that a perfect being can have no need or desire to do anything. And without a need or desire, there's no motivation. A perfect being has no need to think. It has no need to create. It has no need to reward. It has no need to punish. Anything a perfect being does would be, by necessity, completely because of its nature and out of its control. But how could a being be perfect if it was not in control of itself? Now, this also lends itself to bringing the Euthyphro dilemma back into the mix. By saying that it's God's nature to be moral says that God has no control over whether or not he is moral. But that also goes against the idea of a perfect being. Now, here, Theoretical Bullshit brought up something that I have argued for years, and I've made posts on my blog about this same exact idea. Epidemic then makes an argument that is a total non sequitur to any of us that don't believe the same way he does.
A world in which objective values exists is indistinguishable from a world in which they don't exist. This is why the idea of objective morality is trivial and meaningless, and incoherent.
I don't think you can accurately say that a world without objective morality would be identical to this one, but I'll grant that for now because I don't think your argument makes sense even in principle. Consider this analogy, for example. It is possible that we are just a body in the matrix or a mind in a vat. And while it's technically possible that that's true and that the external world is just an illusion, it doesn't make it rational to believe that actually is the case. Pointing out the matrix would look identical to this world doesn't make it rational to believe in the matrix or to disbelieve in reality. Using the same line of reasoning, even if your argument is true, it doesn't support the conclusion that the idea of objective morality is incoherent.
Epidemic, it wasn't until I read your comment on my religious morality video that I actually understood what you were getting at here. You look at the world and think it appears that morality is objective. Because of that, you say that believing that it isn't would essentially be like being a solipsist or believing that we were in the Matrix. The only way you could possibly argue that this is a support for objective morality is if you think that nobody sees things differently than you do. Well, I see it differently than you do. I believe I can show that believing in objective morality is more like being in the Matrix than not believing in it. Now, I don't think morality is subjective because it fits with being an atheist. I've always believed it. When I was a believer, I heard William Lane Craig argue for objective morality, and I thought he was nuts. I just flat out don't see the things in the way you and he do, and I never have. So to say that believing in subjective morality is like believing in the Matrix is incoherent to me. Just as me saying that you believe in objective morality is like being in the Matrix is incoherent to you. There's a reason I don't believe morality is objective, though. I see people that think completely differently on many subjects of morality. I see homosexuals that want to be married, and they see nothing immoral about having relationships emotionally and sexually with people of the same sex. I don't think they're lying, simply because I believe the same way they do. And I know I'm not lying. So the only other options in a world with objective morality are that we are mistaken, or the people that think that it's immoral are mistaken. You see, in order to make a claim of objective morality, you must assert truth absent any evaluative domain. But in absence of such a domain, there's no method by which to qualify any claim of truth. Because of that, homosexuality, being moral or immoral, can't be distinguished objectively, and there is no reason to believe an objective source exists. I know that you see that people agree on most things, but how is that different than any other opinion? Most people agree that chocolate tastes good. Does that mean that chocolate objectively tastes good? Absolutely not. But, you say, morality holds more weight than an opinion. Are you sure? Why does it hold more weight? There are many ways in which opinions on things you would think are subjective have actually been put into law and, essentially made moral values. For instance, if I want to keep an old tractor in my front yard as an ornament, in my town, I'm prohibited from doing that. It would be considered an eyesore by most people, well, many people at least, and that would lower the value of my neighbors' houses. Because of the subjective opinion of the majority of people, my neighbors would be harmed. Therefore, their opinions weigh heavier than mine, and laws have been put into place to prevent me from going along with my subjective preference. In essence, my opinion has been converted to a moral value. According to the city, my morality is wrong. I ought not put a tractor in my yard. Not because that tractor does anything to anyone in reality, but because other people's subjective opinion clashes with mine. This is the same with every moral value. You brought up the idea that Hitler was able to do what he did not because he felt it was okay to kill Jews, but because he believed them less than human. What is your excuse for people like Pol Pot or Stalin? They had ideologies that dictated they kill people in order to progress to a point where everyone could live in happiness. They believed they were doing a service to the country, and it could be argued that they actually were, although I'm not going to do so right now. People simply have different moral values, and you can't show any objective source for the right moral values. Because of that, your belief in their objectivity is unsupportable, and I would have to say incoherent. So, before you can even get to the point of saying, hey, if objective morality exists, then God must exist, you must show that objective morality exists. Otherwise, the whole argument is superfluous. It's unnecessary. Anyway, I hope that was understandable enough, and I am looking forward to your response.